Okay, so this is a test of the Sony A7C with the f1.8 20mm G lens, autofocus, and the iPhone 12 Pro. We're using the wide lens that comes with it, obviously attached. It has an equivalent of an f1.6 or an f1.8 aperture. I'm not 100% sure, and I think a 24 millimeter focal equivalent. And it has a very tiny sensor. The Sony A7C has a very big sensor. The iPhone has a very fast processor and very fast image processing process. And the Sony has really good autofocus, but in terms of digital processing, it's limited, as you can tell. It doesn't have the same level of stabilization that the iPhone has. Also worth noting, the Sony has 8-bit color and the iPhone has 10-bit color. The Sony is recording in a standard, the standard color profile and standard picture profile or picture profile off. And I'm going to be shooting as wide as I can so you can see the bokeh effect. That's going to be a big deal. So let's start off with this low light comparison. Now, all right, so we just turned off the lights and you can't really see much at all. And so that's with the shutter all the way down to 1/50th and the aperture at 1.8 on the Sony. I imagine you can still see a little bit more on the Sony. Now, if I wanted to make it a little bit more visible, I could pop it up to right at 1/4 shutter speed, which does not look good. Now, the bare minimum where I can still get some movement is 1/10. So I'd say that Sony definitely does have an advantage here. Also worth noting, the screen may be giving a little bit of light to the iPhone. Yeah, that's what I thought it was. So I think Sony may be light years beyond what the iPhone is able to pull off. Yeah, so that's the Sony with right at 1/4. What I really wanted to test out here was the quality of the HDR on the Sony and on the iPhone. I'm inclined to think that the iPhone might actually have better HDR. Now this, of course, we're at f1.8, so we're not going to get everything's going to be blown out. There's just too much light. Now, a quick and easy solution for that is getting a neutral density filter. So I'm popping that bad boy on. Going to need that for this much dynamic range. So that's pretty good. I'm actually liking that dynamic range. It actually looks really good. I'm really happy with those results there. Let me see if I can tweak them even a little bit more. Not really, so I could probably adjust the ND filter a little bit, get a little bit more light on my face. Yeah, there we go. All right, so I got the perfect amount of light on my face and the perfect background blur, but I can't really capture much of the HDR. But right around there is when you start to capture a pretty decent amount of HDR. I'm actually digging it. I'd say that I wish my face was a little bit brighter, but it actually looks right on point. So that's gonna be our first test of HDR. I'm interested in seeing what the iPhone is able to pull out from the details there. See if it's actually better or see if it's actually worse. Now, if I look just straight on, not really getting much blue. I guess it's not really that. The blue starts right around there, so it's actually pretty accurate representation of real life colors. Not much blue over there. That's all where the sun is. Now, if I wanted to find a very blue spot of the sky, it'd be right here. All right, so let's try and now that I'm loving the bokeh, I'm loving that backdrop. I mean, the only thing that I wish that I could do is have a little bit more light on my face, which I can do right there, but bam, loses the HDR. Like the second I get a little bit more light on my face, I'm losing the HDR, just like so I mean, that's way too blown out, but right around there is a sweet spot. So that's like one stop away from being all the way up. I'd say like right there. I'm kind of loving it. Right there, you're getting some pretty decent HDR. Now, my face is just about as lit up as I'd want to be. Now I'm actually recording right at this level, not actually not actually needing to, like in a normal video, you wouldn't actually need HDR or excessive HDR. But if I get into a lot more light here, my face is a little bit blown out on the Sony. I mean, it's not unacceptable by any means, but I would like to see a little bit more HDR. And there we go, we found it. Did have to get rid of, had to open up the aperture, and so now you're gonna notice there's a much more limited bokeh effect, which is what really makes Sony cameras, or well, any full frame camera worth getting, or any, you know, f1.8 lens. You know, why have an f1.8 lens if you can't enjoy that beautiful bokeh? So yeah, I'm kind of sad about having to compromise the bokeh there. Now I still got the bokeh here, but I mean, it's my face is washed out. I mean, not washed out, I don't want to say washed out, but it's a little bit bright. Possibly could pop the ISO down a little bit. Let me see, or maybe change the exposure a little bit here. Let me see. So if we did pop the exposure down a bit, I'm still not getting that HDR that I want. So the ideal HDR situation would be able to have my face about right. Wait, let me get the exposure back down to 0. I would like my face to look just like that, and then the blue skies to look like that. But I would also like the bokeh. So the HDR is fine, actually. I'm actually really impressed by the HDR. What I'm not impressed by is that you got to be shooting at 4.5 in order to get that. That's with a pretty ND32. I don't even know. It's a Nano X KNF concept. It goes from 2 to 32. And so what I really wish that I could do here would be, you know, pop up the HDR to be just, you know, popping. Now, my question is the iPhone better able to handle this? Now, let's get into a little bit more of a complicated situation here. Now we got the aperture all the way open. Can't see my face that well. Now you can see my face great on the Sony, but bam, as soon as you see my face, you can't really see any of the sky behind me. I mean, it's kind of, can't really see any of the sky behind me either way, so I guess that's a bad example. I'm just trying to like test out this HDR. All right, so let's see the blues. All right, so we're getting a decent amount of blues up there, and I'm not sure if you guys can actually see that. Yeah, so that's a decent amount of blues. Now if I pop my face in there, can we still get all them blues? Yes, we can. Now, and that's actually really, really pretty. I really like that. Now if I'm in the shadow right there, now can we still get a good balance of those blues and my face? I guess it's pretty decent. I'm not mad at that. I mean, these are pretty, I mean, just a little bit of blown out on the whites right there. We're looking pretty good. Even better right there. So hard to balance. It's hard to balance the bokeh and the HDR on the Sony. That's what I'm throwing out. I'm not saying one is definitively better, because it still looks really good, and the iPhone doesn't even have these bokeh abilities. So I just and I am recording with aperture priority. All right, so now we're recording on full auto. So I want to see what full auto would be able to do with the ND filter and everything. See what kind of HDR we could get. I think I'm looking pretty decent on here. I'm just wondering how I do, how much HDR we can pick up. Pretty decent amount there. So sky's looking, I mean, they're really blue right above me. They are very blue, and I think the Sony's doing a pretty good job of picking that up. Can't see anything. I just got a direct reflection off the sun. And yeah, so this has been the test. If you've enjoyed it, if it's been at all insightful for you, please let me know. I appreciate a subscription, a like.